Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. A lot has happened after my last video, but before I get into that, I want to introduce this video's sponsor, myself. I have a Twitter and an Instagram account that you can now follow for the price of free. My Twitter name is Tumino, as well as my Instagram, so go follow me on there. Anyways, today's video is a follow-up video to my Let's Talk About Fixing Art video. I'll be discussing and correcting some mistakes I made in that video, as well as conducting interviews with two different artists who were targeted by these fixers. One of the artists will stay anonymous and the other one will be public. They both have been brave enough to come forward with their stories, so please be supportive of them in the comments. I won't tolerate any hate or harassment against these two amazing artists who were kind enough to share their experiences with me in hopes of helping someone out that has experienced something similar. If you have not watched my Fixing Art video, I highly recommend you do that to get some context for this one. Link is in the description of this video or in the iCard above. Without any further ado, let's get on with this video. So let's start with the mistakes. I made a couple of them in my last video, and I really want to thank you guys for being so respectful when correcting me in the comments. The first mistake I made was in the 5.55 minute mark of my video, where I showed an example of an artwork that was fixed in a forum. I used this art as an example of how it's not okay to fix someone's art style, but it seems like I used a bad example. You guys brought to my attention that the art I used as an example was already a fixed art itself, and the people of the forum fixed the fixed art. You must be confused because I know I was when I read about this in the comments. Apparently the art I featured was a fixed version of the characters in an anime called Kill la Kill, and the people in the forum fixed that fixed version back to the Kill la Kill art style. Now I wanted to find proof of this, so I searched for the original artist post, but I couldn't find it anywhere. The reason I looked for the original artist post is because it really depends on how the artist presented their work. If they drew Kill la Kill characters in their own stylized way with no fixing intentions, I still stand by the opinion that it's wrong for people to then go and fix their version of the characters. However, if they drew Kill la Kill characters in this stylized way and presented the art as the fixed version, then I don't really care if someone does the same to their art. The problem is that I have no idea how the original artists presented their art in the first place, as they have been bullied off from the internet. And since we can't really speculate, I will just say that my point in that video still stands, even if the example I used wasn't the best. The second mistake I made was around the same time frame of that video, where I scrolled down and showed art from Captain America. I want to be clear that this was mostly an editing mistake. My intention was to just show the Kill la Kill art and the comments that the fixer made, not the Captain America art. I know that the artist who drew the Captain America art is a controversial one, as they like to fetishize trans men, but since I'm not too familiar with their work or past, I won't go too much into them in this video. Point is that my original plan was to cut their art out of my video, but I forgot to do so, and some of you thought I was referring to them in the video. I want to clarify that I was not. Let's get into the last mistake, and I say mistake lightly here, is choosing to show examples of art fixings from a troll account. I want to be transparent and let you guys know that I knew that this account was a troll, but I consciously chose to use their fixings as an example because of how absurd they were. I wish I had clarified that in my video, but regardless, all my points still stand. Whether you're a troll or not, it's still wrong to be racist, fix, whitewash, or steal someone's art. Just because you're a troll doesn't mean you suddenly become excused from criticism or from being held accountable. It seems like many of you dismissed anything the troll said just because it was just a joke, bro. But as you can see from one of the interviews I conducted, the impact of the fixing was still the same whether it was a troll or not. So let's get into the first interview. This artist wished to stay anonymous, and I will respect that. They shared their experience with a troll account fixing their art and answered some questions that I asked regarding this. To give context for the first interview, this artist had their art whitewashed and fixed by a troll. So now you have a little bit more context to the answers that you will hear later. I'll read out the whole interview and then come back to you to discuss about it, so please enjoy. How did it make you feel knowing that someone quote-unquote fixed your art? At first I was angry and assumed it was a personal thing, but after I saw the person go after my friends, my first reaction was to reach out to them and let them know to block that person. Did this experience ever discourage you from creating more art? Not at all. Unfortunately, rude people and trolls are a part of being a creator on the internet, but you get used to it over time. Did it make it feel any less bad to have your art quote-unquote fixed by a troll account, or did it still have the same impact? Same impact. They just seemed like they were a lonely little 13-year-old kid with nothing better to do. What are your thoughts on people fixing other people's art without consent after having experienced it yourself firsthand? It's absolutely not okay and very racist. Anyone who does anything like that should be mass blocked. What do you think about people fixing other people's art as a joke? Does it make a difference if they claim to be joking while doing the fixing? The way I see it, it was just some way for some bored kid to have his 10 minutes of fame. Joke or not, it was still very offensive and racist to quote-unquote fix someone else's art, especially if it's of a black or brown person. Do you have any tips for artists that have had to deal with their art being fixed without their consent? Unfortunately, this is just a part of posting your art on the internet. About 99% of the people you meet are going to be kind, supportive, and interested in your art. That 1% that is rude or acting like trolls is just louder than everyone else. It's important to keep that in mind when posting your art online. Thank you again for answering my questions. I appreciate you so much. You know who you are. From this small interview, you can see that it doesn't really make much of a difference if the person targeting or tampering with your art is a certified troll or someone that is misguided. The result is usually the same and the damage is done. I guess it's just important for us artists to be more aware that something like this might happen when we choose to share our art online. This brings me to my second interview, but before I share it, I want you guys to know how all of this came out to be. When I released my fixing art video, I wanted to credit all the artists whose works I used as an example, but it turned out to be harder than I expected. Most of the artists who were targeted in these different forums for art fixings had been bullied from the internet or magically disappeared. I was sad that this was the case, but I was lucky enough to find the artist whose art I used in my video thumbnail. Their name is Blekan. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, I apologize. I'll leave their links in the description of this video as well as in my pinned comment. I hope everyone goes and supports them because they are risking becoming a target by speaking up publicly. Let's counter that with overwhelming support and love. After I found them on Instagram, I approached them in the DMs and they were kind enough to agree to be interviewed. This artist has the experience of their art being stolen and picked apart in these random forums, and we get to hear their perspective on the whole experience. I'm sure we can all learn something from that, so without any further ado, let's start the interview. How did you first discover that your art was getting fixed and shared on a forum? I first discovered the forum when I was just looking up my account name online to see what results would show up. That was about 3 years ago. I never saw the quote-unquote fixed version until you came to me. It's important to note that the art they are critiquing is when I was 16 to 17 years old. I was obviously not skilled art-wise, and even now I don't claim to be good at art. I just like to do it. How did it make you feel knowing that someone quote-unquote fixed your art by changing everything about it? Seeing someone fix my art that is pretty old and even I think looks really bad really shocked me at first. However, the more I think about it, the more funny it is. Especially because it looks nothing like the original. It's just funny that someone would do that. All they want is a reaction from people, and all I think is that, wow, that's kinda sad. Another thing to add about them quote-unquote redrawing and completely changing the whole art is that my art is obviously very stylized and cartoony, which not everyone has to like. But just because you don't like my art style doesn't mean it's bad or that realistic art would look any better, if that makes sense. Did this experience ever discourage you from creating more art? This hasn't discouraged me from making art because I don't really care much about other people's opinions on my art. I just draw for myself first and foremost. Did any of the people on the forum ever contact you or send you the quote-unquote fixed version of your art? No, not at all, which honestly I prefer they stick to their corner of the internet and I stick to mine. What are your thoughts on people fixing other people's art without consent after having experienced it yourself firsthand? It's shitty, don't do it. I believe the people who do it specifically to get a response from you or to troll. And if you see art that is made to be offensive, racist caricatures or whitewashing or anything like that, don't give them any reactions and just block them and move on. Do you have any tips for the artists that have to deal with their art being fixed without their consent? I say get someone or multiple people either in real life or mutuals to vent and talk to. Don't suffer alone, but I wouldn't do anything publicly as to not give the trolls anything. Really just block anyone who is giving you a bad time online. One thing I'll add is the first time I saw my art being made fun of really hurt me and I really took it very hard. But thanks to some friends, I was able to find humor in it and I was able to get over it. Having support is the most important thing. In doing my research for the video I posted, I realized that some of the artists whose art was targeted in these forums have disappeared from social media or completely changed their alias to get away from the scrutiny. Have you ever thought of just hiding or leaving the art community because of people being hypercritical or targeting your art? No, that was not something I had ever thought about. Maybe the difference is that no one ever came up to me to make fun of my art, and the very few people who did, I would just block them on the spot. I don't know if any of the other artists were harassed or hated on by a bunch of people. Like I said, they have their corner on the internet to say whatever they want, and I have mine, and I never really get any hate over on my side. As you heard from the interview, Blackgun was a young beginner artist when their art was taken to these websites to be torn apart, and that's something that actually happens quite often. They usually target beginner artists and bully them for their lack of art skills while masking it as constructive criticism or help, which in turn could possibly alienate or turn beginner artists away from the art community because of the toxicity. Anyways, I'm pretty glad Blackgun shared their experience with us, and one of the things I feel like we should all take from it is that it's better to surround yourself with supportive friends and family, so if it so happens that you become a target, you will have your friends there to console and support you. The other thing is that unfortunately we can't control what other people decide to do online. We can only control how we react to these scenarios and learn something from them. So my advice would be to ignore these unsolicited fixers completely and not frequent the sites that are doing these activities. Block the troll or person doing this to your art on Twitter or other social medias. Anyways, we covered a lot of things in this video, but the main thing I want to happen is that you guys go and show support to Blackgun, show them some love on their Twitter and Instagram. I'll leave all the links down below. If you want to get these videos more frequently, I would love it if you considered supporting me on Patreon. Shout out to the two lovely patrons I currently have, Empress Durden and B Makias. Thank you so much for the support. Secondly, I was drawing a new merch design in this video. It's actually kind of funny that it's low-key become a habit of mine to create these new designs while ranting. If you guys like how the art turned out though, go check out my merch store and maybe get some for yourself. Link again will be found in the description. What do you guys think of fixing art, and what are your thoughts on the interviews? Were they interesting? Anything you want to add? Do you have experience of being like a target of these fixers? Let me know all of that in the comments. But yeah, bye!